Good evening. I say evening. To me, it's evening because it's the night of the same day I got up. By the clock, it's 01:09, so it's actually Thursday morning. Howsomever, you might be watching this at dawn, at sunset, at noon, at midnight. You know, the thing about these videos is you can watch them anytime. So, I'm going to dive right in because I have here the perfect whiskey for this video. This is Balcones Texas Pot Still Bourbon. I like their labels, but they don't show up on camera too well. I have very rarely been able to get a decent, I thought I'd shifted enough, a decent photo of a Balcones label. And that brings me to a point which I wish to dispose of quickly. I said this is the perfect whiskey. Then I said it's bourbon. Exactly. Bourbon is whiskey. Richard Patterson, who I'm pretty sure is retired now, he was the master blender for the firm of White & Mackay in Glasgow, Scotland. He would give tasting classes, whiskey tasting classes, and he'd hold up the Glencairn and he'd say, "If I catch you holding it like this, I'll have to kill you." Well, if I catch you acting like bourbon is different from whiskey, I'll have to kill you. Bourbon is a kind of whiskey, just as rye and scotch are kinds of whiskey. But why is this particular whiskey perfect for this video? Well, let me dive right in. Definitely getting some smoke. There's what I can only describe as a warm note. I've gotten it from a few other whiskeys as well. I've never been able to come up with anything better than that. It's sweet. There's smoke on there. I think I've said that. And it's not just smoke, but I'm getting oak on the nose, which is unusual for a whiskey. I've never met any other whiskey which did that for me. I got brown sugar, I got cinnamon, I got honey, I got oak on the finish. And this is weird. It happened to me the last glass of this stuff I had, and I've never gotten it from any Balcones whiskey before, but there's a really sharp chemical note in there. It's not corked. It shouldn't be. I've got down this far without running into it, and I've had one corked bottle of whiskey, and it's foul stuff, and it's right there. But the topic of this video is, and yet by now you'll know that I do it in question and answer format, do people who are reviewing whiskey, whether in written form or orally as I'm doing, by the way, verbal means in words. It doesn't matter whether it's written or spoken or sung, that's verbal. If you mean you're using your mouth and not some other form, that is oral, as in oral surgery. Get it straight, people. You know, you've heard me. I can slaughter English like you wouldn't believe. But when it comes to being precise, when meaning what you say and saying what you mean, I'm a stickler. But are the things that I just told you about the nose, about the palate, about the finish of this whiskey, am I just making them up? Are whiskey reviewers just making them up? There was a period when, 4 years ago or so, I began drinking whiskey on the 20th of September 2021. It is now October I believe the 16th. I'm not going to go check the calendar. So not quite a month from the 4th anniversary of me drinking whiskey. And about 4 years ago, I really did wonder, are these people making it up? I wasn't getting all that stuff. At that point, I hadn't yet discovered this. That came in December of 2021. At that point, I was barely able to tell that whiskey tasted like whiskey and didn't taste bad. I was barely able to tell one from another. And so people would say, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting the other. And I thought, I finally got to the point where I said, surely they are making things up. We're not. Now, Randy Sullivan of Bourbon Real Talk, and I will try to remember, don't hold me to it, I have the mind of Forgetful Jones, I am Forgetful Jones, but I'll try to remember to put a link to his channel in the description. Why am I trying to nose water? Randy Sullivan of Bourbon Real Talk does his own commercials for his own products. Those products are not merchandise, or stuff. No, or name the 2 or 3 particular kinds of stuff. Glasses and t-shirts and whatnot. Everybody says, merch. Use your own flippin' words. Don't copy everybody else. Sheesh. Anyway, one of his commercials, and I can't remember what he's advertising, is a pseudo whiskey review, and it's called Pretentious Whiskey Reviews. He's got an ascot on, and I don't think he's trying to mock Fred Minnick. He's just going with the stereotype of the pretentious character. And he's got a brandy snifter, and he's going, I'm getting a hint of Bolivian virgin tears. And yeah, that is kind of what I was thinking 4 years ago. But as I continued to drink whiskey, and not just drink it, but try to evaluate it for myself, I started getting things. And I realized, no, it's not fake. Now, that does not mean there are no fakes at all. I'm sure there are. And I have come across whiskey channels where the person or people, I found that almost always I don't like whiskey channels with more than one person. There are exceptions. Stuff and Whiskey with Josh and Aaron is great. SLB Drinks with Kurt and Trenton and sometimes others is great. I'm not even going to say I'll try to remember to put them in the description, because I know my brain, it won't hold more than one thing at a time, and we're lucky if it holds one, a moth or something flying around. Oh, there's that chemical note. Something has gone wrong with this bottle of whiskey. And so I'm going to have to just dispose of it and get another. Sometimes that happens. Maybe it is slightly corked, and that will grow, and I'm not going to go any further. But that chemical note was only started the last time a few days ago that I had a glass of this, and it's there now. Maybe stronger, maybe not, I don't know. But until the finish, I'm not getting it. And so I can still talk about this stuff, though I don't plan to have any more sips of it. It makes me think of sitting on a log beside a mesquite fire while the barbecues are slowly smoking, eating candy. The lineage, American single malt. It's barley whiskey, 100% barley mash bill. I believe, because of the name, it's 100% sprouted barley. But that stuff reminds me of sitting in a meadow eating tropical fruit in the early morning. And sometimes you can quantify something, say, yes, I'm getting smoke, I'm getting oak, I'm getting sweet corn, I'm getting caramel. Sometimes all you can do is say, it's a warm note, as I do with this, and as I say, a few others. But we really are getting those notes. Are you getting them? Well, if you're new to whiskey, you probably aren't getting everything the rest of us are. You have to train your palate to seek out and detect what's there. Practice. There's an it was old when I was a kid, an old joke. Guys visiting New York City, he's in Manhattan, stops somebody who's carrying a violin case, figures a musician will know, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is, practice, practice, practice. And that's what it takes to get to Carnegie Hall, to get to where you can detect things in whiskey. And even people who've been doing it for years aren't always able to sort out 35 different notes. On Stuff and Whiskey, Erin very frequently on her first sniff will say, it smells like whiskey. On her first sip will say, it tastes like whiskey. She is not able, even after years of practice, to immediately detect specific notes. And if you're new to whiskey, almost certainly you are not yet that practiced. How did Ray Lewis, I'm not a big sports fan, but I think of Ray Lewis, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens. He could be standing there, and a split second later, he would have moved and smashed the other player 20 yards down the field. I exaggerate, obviously, but when he hit, it was sudden and hard. Well, how did Ray Lewis become such a spectacular defensive player? Years of practice. How did Dale Earnhardt become such an intimidating and dominating stock car driver? Practice. How did Fred Minnick become a world expert on bourbon? Practice. Now, you may not have the innate talent of Ray Lewis or Dale Earnhardt or Fred Minnick. I don't. But what talent you have requires practice to develop. So if you're just starting out, you're not going to get all this stuff. It's no big deal. As you go along, you'll learn to get more. You'll be able to get more. You will never get exactly the same thing as anybody else. I say that dogmatically, but there may be an exception. The manager of Kelly Liquors and I seem to have identical palates. He gets what I get. He has the same opinions I do. He'll say it and I'll say, yeah. I'll say it and he'll say, yeah. And he's recommended 5 whiskeys to me now. Every single one I've loved. Every single one I've gotten from it what he said is there. So maybe there are identical palates in the world, but it's not a thing to bet on. So yes, we are really getting those things. No, you're not going to get exactly the same things, and no, you're not going to get it all if you're just starting out. Give it time. Keep drinking whiskey. Keep nosing it. Keep tasting it. Keep noticing what you get. Keep savoring it. And what you are able to get, you will learn to get. And it makes things so much more fun, so much more exciting. Now, with that metallic taste coming through, I am not going to take another sip. I've mentioned that already. But I will lift my glass to all 63 subscribers. In 2 days, I picked up 3 people. I don't know what I'm doing right unless it's this new recording setup, which is still thoroughly amateur, but light years better than the old. But somehow I am accumulating subscribers at a great rate, and I thank all of you. I appreciate you. I've done this before. I'm going to quote Casey Allen of Beautiful Bourbon. You could be doing anything else, and you're watching this video. Thank you. Cheers.